G'day there guys, fun fact, I didn't know how to tie my shoelaces until I was 10. It's Markee here and welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, smash that like button, tell me what you think of it down in the comments, and enjoy today's episode. Posted by user Bo Bandit, titled, Am I the a-hole for causing a scene at my grandfather's funeral? For background, I'm 21 female and my sibling is 23 NB. They are androgynous in appearance and have rainbow-dyed hair. None of us get along with my dad's side of the family because they are very religious and can be rude and downright homo/transphobic. My grandma uses horrible slurs casually. I have almost had no contact with that side of my family in 2 years. Both my siblings and I are atheists. My grandpa died earlier this week, and his funeral was today. I was at this church my cousin is a part of, and trust me, it is weird. Like, lizard people run the government, and 5G gives you the corona. Kinda weird. My contribution to the funeral was buying and supplying all of the food and drinks, plates, cups, etc. for my family. When my sibling walked in, I saw the pastor stare at them, and the pastor eventually walked up to us and asked how we knew the deceased. I said we were his grandchildren. He then asked, "Are you a gay?" I know he directed it at my sibling, but I also know how sensitive my sibling is to homophobia. So I responded, "If you mean gay, yes, I am gay." He then asked us both to leave. At this point, everyone was watching us, and my sibling was tearing up. I am super protective of them. I told the pastor that this was a celebration for my grandfather that I had helped arrange, and I would not be leaving because it was my right to be here. He had a long speech about how he wouldn't have any gays pushing their agenda at his house of God. My grandma said, "Maybe it's best if you leave," across the room. When she said that, I said, "Fine, we'll go." So my siblings started to cry and got up to leave. But before they did, I got them to help me carry all of the food, sandwiches, wraps, veggies, drinks, desserts, that I had brought back to my car. My whole family watched us silently. I don't know what happened after that, but we took a bunch of the food to our neighbor's house and had a sort of picnic with them. My mom and dad were absolutely furious after. They said we should not have made a scene because it was for my grandpa and not about us. I had already paid my respects and said my goodbyes to Grandpa when I saw him in the hospital before he died, and so had my sibling. We were only at the church because it was polite to attend. My grandma is a narcissist and has lately been thriving on all the attention that her husband's death has given her. She wore an elaborate ball gown-style dress to the funeral like she was going to the prom. So I'm sure she's loving all the attention that my family is giving her since queers stole the food at the funeral. So, am I the a-hole for quote-unquote causing a scene at the funeral and taking back all the food that I brought? P.S. Everyone except for the pastor wore masks and social distanced. The funeral was invite only because of a limit of the amount of people that we could accommodate safely. Classic story of homophobia going rife in institutions like this. Absolutely not acceptable behavior by the pastor. Absolutely not acceptable for other people to be enabling these disgusting and barbaric, beliefs. I don't feel like it's acceptable in this day and age. I don't understand how these things continue to go. Opie is not the a-hole for causing a scene by taking the food back that they provided for their grandpa's funeral. I mean, to be excluded from someone's celebration of life, absolutely disgusting, and I feel so bad for the OP. Not the a-hole. You didn't make a scene, the pastor did. You existed, and he had a problem with said existence. If he had kept his mouth shut at a bloody funeral, things would have been fine. Instead, he had to push his agenda instead of letting your family grieve a loved one. Your family needs to realize you did nothing but answer a question, were called a slur, and were asked to leave because of it. That isn't your fault at all, bloody bigots. If the pastor is part of a convention, like a Southern Baptist, Methodist, etc., or a diocese, like a Catholic, report them to their superiors. That's inexcusable behavior for a man of God. You might not think this will help, but you'd be surprised. Right? I could have sworn Jesus' first rule was empathy, followed by love your brother, followed by judge not lest ye be judged, and cast no stones as you've sinned too. And that's if you even agree that they've sinned, which I don't. Posted by user Lady Ashara D. Titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my neighbor because she called CPS on my husband? A little background. I, 32 female, live with my husband, 33 male, and our 2 children, Jake, 6 male, and Amy, 3 female. A young couple, probably in their early 20s, are our next-door neighbors. Now, 2 weeks back, my husband took Jake and Amy to a park nearby. Ideally, I would have gone too, as it's easier to manage the kids when we're both there. But I had an important office work that day, and husband had a day off. Jake wanted to use the swing, but husband forbade it since he was alone with the 2 of them and said that they'd just walk around. Sometime later, Amy got a pebble in her shoe or something, and he sat her down on a bench to check it. He specifically asked Jake to stay behind him, but Jake, I guess, really wanted to swing, and seeing his dad's attention elsewhere, decided to run for it. He was trying to go too fast, lost his balance, and fell. All of this happened in a matter of seconds. That was it. They came back home, we talked to Jake about it, and told him why he was wrong, and we all moved the hell on. Imagine our surprise when CPS, or the equivalent to CPS in our country, we don't live in the US, pulls up at our door and says that they've been given reports about how my husband was a negligent parent and how he put Jake's life in danger. They mentioned the park incident, where, according to their version, my husband totally forgot about Jake, and that led to Jake seriously hurting himself. There were no serious injuries. He had minor scratches on his hands and knees. Obviously, they did not find anything wrong, didn't tell us about the identity of the reporter though. Husband mentioned that our neighbors were present that day in the park, and later when I asked, the woman confessed. She even went on to say that my husband was almost abusive, and that she was just looking out for Jake. Why do I believe my husband's version and not hers? Well, firstly, he's my husband and I trust him, and also because Jake confessed he disobeyed his dad. I was super mad at this, and I generally don't get that angry, but she was accusing my husband of being abusive, and she called CPS on him. I yelled at her that she didn't know crap about anything, and she was just trivializing abuse and parental negligence. She cried, and I told her to F off. Her boyfriend thinks that she was just mistaken, and I should forgive mistakes. Am I the a-hole? If someone reports you and gets you in a situation where there is a potential, no matter how small, for your children to be taken off of you because of a minor incident that they misinterpreted, I feel like you have full rights to get angry, like OP is getting. I feel like it's unacceptable to report that if it's genuinely not abuse. You just think it's abuse. Obviously, there should be times where discretion is used and you should be reporting abuse, but the way that things happened with this kid falling over and going back to his dad is in no universe warranting a CPS call. Simply unacceptable. I would get even angrier than OP is getting at this woman. She deserves that hate and negativity. That was a mistake. She's gonna learn that it was a mistake and not to do it again. Not the a-hole OP. That type of mistake could destroy family lives. A child running off while a parent is distracted by another parent is normal behavior. That neighbor needs to mind her own damn business. Now, if true abuse or neglect was ongoing, I would support it. But a kid being a kid? Good on you for standing up for that one. Nothing worse than neighborhood busybodies measuring the world with their personal metric. Ask Freakout Franny how she'd feel if you called the cops to report how abusive her husband is the next time that they get into an argument. I mean, they're shouting, so obviously that means he's beating her within an inch of her life, right? No? Oh, oops. Just a mistake, hey? Hopefully they aren't parents. I had a neighbor who parked his 10-ton truck in the street every day. suburban streets. One night, he got home at like 10 p.m., reverse beepers on full sound reversing up his driveway. Woke up my then 1-year-old, who's only just gone to sleep as he was suffering cramp. Poor kid woke up and screamed for hours. I was rocking and shushing and soothing him the whole time, but he was unwell and couldn't get back to sleep. Those very same neighbors called our CPS equivalent on me. Had police come round and do a welfare check early next morning. Police said everything was fine, but I was fudging shaken. You betcha every single time that truck was covering my driveway, I called the council. Every time they used a power tool past the noise cutoff time, called the police. We only lived there a couple more months, but all the crap I had been putting up with to try and be a good neighbor, all of it gone. Talk to your neighborhood crows if you have any. I crap you not, my old sow of a neighbor turned me into the HOA for having a murder of crows living in my yard. Obviously it didn't go anywhere, so she began to yell at them. And so begins our multi-year war of the crows and the old hag. Every year they dive bomb her, and every year she screams at them, reinforcing the behavior. Me and the crows were cool. I really didn't care for them either until they gave me a reason to love them. To forgive her mistake, she needs to call CPS and rescind her statement. She needs to say, I overreacted, and if I can write a letter or anything that will undo what I did, I'd like to. For her to say he was almost abusive is to say he was not abusive. I'm a dad, and am probably almost abusive all the time. For example, I feed my kids vegetables, but the vegetables are next to the napkins. And if you think about it, I'm almost feeding them napkins just about every day. Posted by user FluffyBase6635. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not apologizing for how I reacted to my daughter coming out as gay? My daughter recently told us that she is a lesbian. That is completely fine, and I have no problem with anyone's sexuality. I am the least emotional person ever. I hate showing emotions when I actually feel them, which is pretty rare, and I certainly don't fake them because it is socially expected. I am so in love with my husband, but if you watch our wedding video, I look bored. My daughter knows this. I said I was happy for her, and of course we support her. Her sisters were making a big deal of how proud they were, and hugging her, and she was emotional, but that is just never going to be me. She got angry and said that I wasn't being supportive. My older daughter said that isn't fair, because I had the same reaction when she told me she was engaged, and when she told me she was pregnant, and that's just me. My daughter wants me to apologize for not supporting her sexuality, but I told her I'm not going to apologize when I literally said I support her, and she knows this is how I am, and that I've never been homophobic or anything in the past. No, I can't fault you for that behavior, OP. She's trying to milk a reaction that you don't give, and if you did give her that reaction, she would probably feel like it was ingenuine, and you don't want to have a fake reaction that is, literally just guilted out of you by your daughter. I don't know where she's suddenly getting this urge to have a huge emotional reaction from you, but, you're not obliged to do it. Everyone else understands. I don't understand why she won't accept that. You're not the a-hole. Keep doing what you're doing. Not the a-hole. We need to get away from the idea that it is reasonable to dictate other people's reactions. It's not, and she should know her mother better. Not the a-hole. I came out decades ago. I'm also very private and introverted. While acceptance has come very far, it seems to have swung to a degree that would make me profoundly uncomfortable to have to perform for people who make a huge deal out of coming out. Applause, balloons, cheering. If that's not you, either as the parent or the gay child, then do what means the most to you. Your actions in the upcoming months and years will attest to the genuine nature of how you accept your daughter. This coming out is such a strange act when you really look at it. Nobody has to open a box full of pink and blue balloons or slice a special cake to say, I'm straight, because that's the default. But when it comes to being gay, there seems to be this social expectation that people will make a huge deal out of it. It's honestly almost borderline homophobic that we expect this kind of detail and explanation about a person's sexual attractions when they don't conform to heteronormativity. For me, I would hate for my kids to feel like they had to do a big gay song and dance. I want them to grow up knowing that I don't care much about who they want to F, and I'll be delighted to meet any man, woman, or gender non-conforming individual that they bring home. Not the a-hole OP. When my friend came out to me, I basically said, cool, and continued with our conversation, which was about sexuality. The next time I saw them, I acknowledged that them coming out to me was a huge sign of trust, and that I understand how difficult that was, and it might have seemed like I didn't care too much about their coming out. That wasn't the case. I just didn't care about their sexuality. Posted by user Wordic2. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not having a relationship with a child born out of my dad's affair? I'm 24, and my younger sisters are 22 and 20. When I was 10, my dad left my mum for a woman that he was having an affair with. Their baby was born a few months later. I didn't go for visitation and would only see my father alone a few times a month. Eventually, my sisters followed me and refused to visit in his home. My half-brother is now 14, my siblings and I do not have any relationship with him. We don't blame him, but we are just happier keeping things separated. Our half-brother has messaged all three of us separately on Instagram a few times. My youngest sister was the only one who replied, and basically told him sorry, but it's best to keep things the way they are. I've just never responded. The last time we had dinner with our dad, he brought our half-brother along. The three of us left quietly without eating, and I later cursed out my dad for creating a very crappy situation. All three of us haven't talked to our dad since. I'm sorry if our dad and half-brother are hurt, but unfortunately, it's a crappy situation, and we're happy as we are. Am I the a-hole? This is a hard one to judge. I want to give it a no a-holes here situation, because no one really is an a-hole. I mean, the worst coming from this is that you're not enabling a relationship with your half-brother, and that can break his heart. But I guess you're well within your right to not establish that relationship, as you don't have to. But I imagine if he's someone that wants that connection with his family, he wants to get to know his siblings, I can imagine that would hurt him quite a lot. Especially if you guys just to walk away from the dinner like that and hurt him even more. Your dad sucks here for putting him in that situation if he knew that you guys were going to stand up the dinner date and just walk away like that. It feels like your dad was setting up the brother for pain, and he's not doing his job as a father to keep the peace and find the best solution for everyone in this situation. But then I also take into consideration, I don't know if I can blame him for trying. It's better than not trying in some instances, so I'm torn. I want to say either everyone sucks here or no a-holes here. It's hard to make a judgment on this one. Info. Why do you maintain a relationship with your dad, who is the biggest a-hole here, but refuse to talk to his kid? I could see dad cutting off, and thus functionally the kid, but it makes zero sense to keep the old man around if you're not going to accept your brother. It's barely a relationship if I'm being honest, and it's a relationship that we are stringing along at the insistence of my mother. But after the crappy thing he did at the last dinner, I don't think we'll be seeing much of him going forward. Yeah, I think that would be for the best. Keeping your dad in the picture, but refusing to get to know your brother, sends a pretty devastating message to a young boy. Yeah, that's pretty sad for the kid who has done nothing wrong and reached out again and again. Soft a-hole here. You could cut them both out, or cut your dad and give the kid a chance. You are harboring a lot for your failed parents' relationship well over a decade ago. Even your mum has moved on and is clearly trying to keep everyone happy, and you, well, not so much. Look at the other comments. It's pretty clear she and her sisters resent the child's very existence. It's fine if they want nothing to do with their father and the kid, but man, walking out like that, ignoring and resenting the child who has done nothing wrong in all of this, makes me sick to my stomach. He's going to grow up knowing he has 3 big sisters who hate him and want nothing to do with him because of what his father did. He's being shamed for his very birth as though it was his fault. I hope he gets some therapy because that stuff will F you up in life. But they aren't obligated to have anything to do with him. Why should they be forced to have a relationship with some completely random kid just because their dad cheated and screwed another woman? He has literally nothing to do with them. That sucks for the kid, but at the end of the day, his dad is the only one to blame. He's the one that made the decision to make 2 separate families. He's to blame if those families don't want to gel. They didn't treat him like a random kid though. They treated him like someone they actively can't stand to be in the same room with. Even if they don't want to foster a relationship, walking into dinner and walking right back out the second they see his face is pretty fudging harsh. Probably because, consciously or subconsciously, OP and her sisters see the kid as the living embodiment of the destruction of their family and their dad's infidelity, and they want nothing to do with that. Is this fair to the kid? No. But nothing is fair in this world, and OP and her sisters shouldn't have to have a relationship with someone they don't see as family. Hell, it's probably better that there isn't a relationship. It'd just bring misery to everyone all around. Posted by user Raichi2009, titled, "Am I the a-hole for being livid? My significant other volunteered for a year-long deployment without talking to me about it." First, some backgrounds. We have a very energetic 4-year-old, and I work a 50-hour-a-week job. The closest family and friends live 3 hours away. On top of that, he has already been away on pandemic orders since March and now deploying in October. I found out accidentally that my husband volunteered for a year-long deployment and I was ticked. He has been lying this entire time, saying it was not his choice. Obviously I believed him because that's how the military works. When I found out, I basically told him that all my trust in him is gone, and I refuse to spend my life being lied to and not having a say in our major life choices. He said I was overreacting, and he was doing what was best for us. I've been so overwhelmed, working from home with my child alone, and trying to accept that I will be doing this alone for the next year. And now this? Edit. This is an MOB where he will be staying in an extended stay hotel, not in a combat zone. Edit 2, he is a reservist, not active duty. I know barely anything about military, but I don't think you need to know much about it to understand that he chose to go away for a year when he didn't need to do that, and it was not acceptable in this family dynamic that you guys have got going on. I don't think anyone can blame you for being mad at that. Obviously, you would be the a-hole if this was the military putting him up and he had no choice. So in this situation, I feel like your anger is entirely warranted. And who knows what else he's doing if he's able to lie to you like this. This could just be the smoke you're smelling from a huge wildfire. Who knows? Not the a-hole. I don't think you're overreacting. It sounds to me like he's avoiding his responsibilities to you and your child to get away, and trying to use his service as a shield for any blame. While I respect his service to our country, it's crappy of him to use deployment as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Besides, there is a massive difference between being forced to deploy and voluntarily doing it at a time where you clearly need him. In regular work, there are things you need to volunteer for if you ever want your career to progress. I imagine it's even more so in the military. So I wouldn't just assume he's trying to avoid family work. The problem is, all we can do is assume stuff because this dude didn't communicate anything. OP has to be included in these discussions, and him just deciding he is doing what is best for them without her input makes him an a-hole. I mean, yes, it's true this move will likely help his career. However, I can't think of a single circumstance under which it's reasonable or okay for a parent to unilaterally decide on a career move of any kind that involves being away from their family for an entire year. If someone got offered a once-in-a-lifetime, year-long research contract somewhere they couldn't bring their family along, they would be expected to discuss it with their spouse before accepting. Doing any less is crap, and lying about it is just the icing on the cake. Okay, and I think that's where we're going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from these stories. Just want to say a quick shout out to my Patreon subscribers and my channel members. You guys should be on the screen right now. If you do see yourself, I want you to give yourself a little pat on the back for being amazing and supporting me on this channel, this little journey we're going on the YouTubes. I really appreciate it, and you guys enable me to do all this amazing work. So if you do see yourself, I love your face and I'm happy to see you. Also guys, if you want to pitch in your own support, you don't have to, but channel links are down in the description below to support the Patreon, the channel membership, whatever you want to do. It's kind of like tipping me if you feel like I'm doing a good job on this channel. I will be opening up avenues for content on those in the future. Just right now I'm kind of bogged down and stuck in Ireland, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, with that said, I do hope you have a wonderful day today. Whatever you're up to, I'd love to know down in the comments below. I do hope you have a good day, night, sleep. Whatever you're up to today, tell me, and I'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.